and welcome to this episode of Cook by Colour. Today we're making everyone's favourite for Easter, hot cross buns. They're not hard to make, they're just a little bit fiddly, so let's get started. Now we're making fruit hot cross buns. If you don't want fruit, that's fine, just leave that out. So what we have is 1 pink scoop or 1 cup of mixed fruit, the dried fruit, and 1 cup of hot tap water, not boiling water, just hot tap water. So that's 1 pink scoop. We're just going to pop those in a bowl and let them to sit for 15 minutes. Okay, so it's been 15 minutes and I've actually drained my fruit. I've actually put it through a sieve and then I squeezed the fruit to make sure there's all the excess waters out of it. And now we're going on to our batter mix. So in this mix, I've actually got some bread flour, not cake flour. The difference is this is a higher protein, so you get a bread consistency, otherwise you get a cake consistency. And in that, I've actually got 3 pink scoops of the bread flour, which is 3 cups. I also have some caster sugar, which is a finer grain than normal sugar. And for that one, I added 1 grey scoop or 1/4 cup. I've also added some flavour. So we had some nutmeg, and to that one, I added a 1/2 teaspoon, which is a blue scoop, which is our pink packet. I added some cinnamon ground, which is the pink and white packet. And for that one, I added 1 purple scoop. So that's a 1/2 tablespoon of the ground cinnamon. I added some ginger, which is the one in the light baby blue packet. And I added a blue scoop of that, which is a 1/2 teaspoon. I also added some mixed spice. So that gives it that nice fragrance that you like. And for that, I added 2 red scoops or 2 teaspoons for that one. And that's the blue and black packet. And the last ingredient for flavour I added was a little bit of salt. So that brings out the flavours that we like, which is our white packet. And I added a yellow scoop, which is a 1/4 teaspoon of that. The last ingredient we added for our dry ingredients is yeast. So that's 1 packet of yeast, but if you're buying it loose, you need to get 1 purple scoop. I've just sifted that all together, and to that I've added some water. I had hot tap water, not boiling water, and I added 1 of the pink scoop, which is 1 cup, and then the remainder I'm actually adding 1 of the grey scoop, which is a 1/4 cup. And into that I also added some oil. So make sure you use an oil that hasn't got flavour in it, just a plain vegetable oil. And to that I added 3 purple scoops. So that's all in there together now. I'm just going to get my spatula and give it a mix. So bring that all together. So I've just mixed all my ingredients together here, and you'll see it's starting to form a bit of a dough. So once it comes together, we're just going to transfer that over to our rolling mat. I'm just going to put a little bit of the plain flour over my rolling mat so that the dough doesn't stick. If you need a little bit more, we'll add some later, but for now that should be fine. So we're just going to transfer that dough mix that we've made onto the mat. So I'm just going to gently knead that for a few minutes, just so it all comes together nicely. If it's really sticky, you can add a little bit more flour, but the more you knead it, the less sticky it will become. So don't add it too soon, just in case. And what you'll see, you get a nice dough. What you want is a nice dough there. So that's now come together. Now, if you want fruitless buns, leave it at this point. But we're adding the fruit to ours. So I'm just going to get that dried fruit that I had earlier. So you can actually see we've drained it and it's actually quite dry. And we're just going to knead that into the dough. Just for the last minute or so, just to incorporate all that fruit. Our fruit's all combined now, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to get some of the oil again now with a purple scoop. Put 1 purple scoop of oil back in the bowl that we used before. Then with my pastry brush, I'm just going to coat the entire bowl in that oil so that when we put the dough back in to rise, it doesn't stick. So now we've got our dough in there. I've got a nice clean tea towel. So I'm now going to leave it on the bench in a nice warm spot for 1 hour, and then we'll start rolling out our buns. It's been 1 hour or 60 minutes, and we're going to open up our dough, and you can see it's doubled in size. So what we're going to do is just take out the excess air Just squeeze that excess air out. So it's called degassing. And we're going to roll that onto our mat so it doesn't stick. I'll just put a little bit of flour on the mat first. So I've just put a little bit of flour on there. I'm just going to pour that out onto there. And you can see it's nice, it's risen up, it's ready to go. I'm just going to use my hands just to push it into a square shape, not overwork it. And we're going to cut that into 12 pieces. So I like to do is cut it in half, and then in half again, and again. So we've now got 4 pieces, and then cut each one of those into 3. So we now have our 12 pieces. I've got a lined baking tray here, and what I'm going to do is get each one and then roll them around into a nice ball, and then pop that into the tray. They're now all done. What we're going to make now is the cross of the top. So for the cross for the top, I'm just going to make myself a flour and water mix, which is equal parts, both 1 scoop of black scoop of plain flour and of normal tap water. I'm just going to pop that into my piping bag. If you don't have a piping bag, that's fine. Just use a normal Ziploc bag and cut the corner out of it. Okay. So I just pop that into my piping bag. And I'll just pipe across one way. One more lot. And then we'll go across the other way as well. Okay, so we've got our crosses piped on top. We're just going to leave that again. We're going to leave it for half an hour. We're going to cover them up and let them rise, and then they'll go. So it's been 30 minutes and our hot cross buns have risen by double the size. That's going to go in the oven. So while they were rising, I put the oven on at 180 degrees on fan force. So we'll pop those in the oven for 20 minutes and then we'll come back and finish them off. So our hot cross buns are in the oven. They're nearly done. So I'm going to make a sugar glaze for the top. So for the sugar glaze, I've got 1 tablespoon or 1 black scoop of caster sugar and a half a tablespoon or 1 purple scoop of hot tap water. So I've just put the 2 of them in together and I'm just dissolving the sugar in the water. So the moment that the hot cross buns come out, I'll actually use a pastry brush and just paint that over the top to give it that nice gloss that we like on our hot cross buns. Our hot cross buns have just come out of the oven. They cook for 20 minutes. So while they're still hot, I'm going to use the sugar syrup that we made. I'm just going to gloss over the top to give them that beautiful shine that hot cross buns have. So just right over the top of all the hot cross buns. So our hot cross buns have cooled down slightly and you can actually see how nice and soft they are on the inside. Enjoy them with a dollop of butter. Till next time, that's Cook by Colour for today, and happy Easter.